And I believe it for me when I turned it in 1990, it was really just another theme. I'd been writing a lot of themes at that time, and what happened was, of course, it landed right in the Showtime era. It landed right there with Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and those great rivalries between the Pistons and everybody else. It was good versus evil. All those great stories. Comebacks and Cinderella. I mean, all of those stories were being basically scored by that song. And so this, you can tell by the way NBC is promoting it. This is a real nostalgia play for them. And I saw the same stuff you did. In fact, I lit the fire a little bit when I wanted to know what people were saying about the song. So I found some old footage of the song for people playing the song. I put it up on my social media, and people were telling me some people like I was 8 years old when I would run to the TV set, and things like that. So it's that rare moment where the song becomes attached to a moment in time, and the fans are all about it. I had nothing to do with that part.
First album of all original music in over 20 years. He is also the creator of Roundball Rock, which you'll hear very soon on NBC when the NBA returns to the network for the upcoming season. We have the pleasure in welcoming John Tesh onto Hoopsology. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Thanks for coming on to the show. Truly appreciate it. Before we jump into just your career and Roundball Rock, we have a bit of a tradition on our show. Our podcast covers basketball culture, what makes the game of basketball so great. So take this question any way you want, any direction. What is your first or favorite basketball memory?
Oh boy, I would say my dad taking me to a Knicks game back in the '60s. Yeah, and I think I was scared to death because he got good tickets, and I just as I kept saying, "Oh my gosh, these guys are so big." That was about it. But I grew up on Long Island in New York, so it was a great moment for me. I did not know at that time that I'd be writing basketball music, though. I can be honest with you.
So just listening to your latest album and just, listening to Roundball Rock over the years, I think, and I grew up in a family of musicians. I think it's phenomenal that you just have a ear of composing music for just the right setting in sports. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate that. So how did you come up with that skill? Because I think that's just incredible in terms of taking something that is very visual, but putting something very musical to it that just fits perfectly. So what is your philosophy in kind of composing just sports that music that goes with any sport that you're trying to create that moment for?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, thanks for the compliment, and it's a great question because I think it's an unusual genre, right? I mean, I think most people who think of sports music, they think of just the beginning of Fox Football or Round Ball Rock or something like that. But I mean the answer is that I grew up playing sports. I spent a bunch of time sitting on the bench it's on Long Island, where I played lacrosse and soccer. But then went to NC State and played D1 soccer and lacrosse there. And so I've always been into the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, all of that. But oddly enough, when I ended up in the news business in when I was 19 years old, and then I worked in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then Orlando, and then Nashville, and then when I got to New York, I was working as a correspondent at CBS, and I got a call from CBS Sports, Terry O'Neill and Dick Ebersol, and they said, we'd like to hire you to come work for the network as a sports announcer. I said, I think you got the wrong guy. I can only name three NFL teams. And so they said, no, no, no. We've seen your work, your live work covering news events, and we're looking to do more. Look you to do more of the anthology sports. I didn't know what they were talking about, but turns out what they meant was downhill skiing, figure skating, bike racing, even triathlons and marathons and things like that, speed skating, all of it. And so it sounded great. They said you'll be living in Europe for like the next 6 or 7 years on and off, And my first event was basically the Coors Classic bike race in Colorado, but then the Tour de France. And I worked I was partnered up with with David Michaels, who was Al Michaels' brother. And David was a great producer. He was working for CBS at the time, and he said, "John, not a lot of people know anything about bike racing in the United States. I want to cover it MTV style." So we started using music from like little clips of music, like intros of pop songs, and then running out of music. And finally, I said, "Hey, David, I actually in another life, I am a composer." Nobody knew that, of course. But I could probably do some of this stuff. So he said, "Okay." So we flew all of my synthesizers. This is 1982, right? From New York to Paris, and put them in a van. And I started writing music for the Tour de France. And this was people who want to nerd out on this. It was a Prophet 5, a Prophet 10, an emulator, a Mac SE, a Voyetra 6, and all these all these instruments that have come back now, that are the sounds of the 80s that Thomas Dolby might use. And so I started writing music for that sport, and that particular sport really had everything. It was high speed, downhills at 60 miles an hour. It was those torturous climbs, and it was people falling. All the pictures were incredible, and so I was called on to write these different types of music for that race, and then being in the microcosm of the sports world in that at that time, I knew when another producer might need a theme for golf or for tennis or whatever, or an opening theme for Ironman triathlon. So I was for a good 6 or 7 years surrounded by these amazing pictures, all the raw footage, and it taught me how to first of all how to write quickly, but also what the producers needed. Since it sounds like you listened to the record, which I appreciate, sports music really needs twists and turns, so and really needs a lot of beats and a lot of hits. There was a story done by The Ringer about Roundball Rock, and there was interviews with Terry O'Neill, and he was talking about how that was the kind of music that I wrote, and it was created by that need was created by the different changes in the pictures, and then I would just match that. And sometimes 8 bars would be for a 4/4 rock, time signature, or it'd be 5/4, or it'd be 12/8. And that's what this record is. A lot of twists and turns, and all of a sudden everything stops and you've got acoustic guitar and just a fretless bass. A lot of that came from growing up with my favorite bands, which was Yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Rush, bands like that. So and then I tested out all these songs, working out to them, because that's another thing I always had a hard time doing, was finding a workout playlist.
So I think that's just so fascinating in terms of how your music has lasted the test of time. Things have changed, technology has evolved, but yet this theme have lasted the test of time. What if you appreciate that too? Just in terms of just spans, it's always, the NBA has changed networks consistently, the television landscape has changed, but this theme has always lasted. And once the NBA was returning to NBC, immediately all I saw on social media is nothing about like who's going to be the analyst or the athletes or the coverage. Is when is Roundball Rock coming? Like this theme is just so synonymous with just, I think, not only the NBA but sports. So are you shocked by just how long this theme has just remained into the public consciousness?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great word for it. I definitely was shocked because, the theme was written in 1990, and then it was on NBC for 10 years, and then it basically went on the shelf for a while because ABC wanted to do their own theme. I think it was something from Justin Timberlake, and at first I was like, wow, why? And I even called them up and said, hey, why don't you just use this theme? I could re-record it for you. And they said, no, we want to do our own theme. And then I suddenly realized had they played that theme when the ratings came out, the Nielsen ratings or whatever, the television ratings, people would write down NBC, because it was always the NBA on NBC, right? It was that theme. And so it went on the shelf for a good 20 years. In the middle of that, YouTube was created, and people would the odd person would learn how to play the theme. We played it in concert. We played it on PBS specials, and then when Saturday Night Live did the spoof with with me, Jason Sudeikis playing me, and they had my brother. I don't have a brother, but they on that one I did it was Dave Tesh doing the blah 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 basketball thing. It lit it right. It lit everything back up, and so the theme became popular again. And then when the news, like you said, when the news came out, the NBC had the rights for the next 11 years for the NBA. Then that was the big question, and I believe it for me when I turned it in 1990, it was really just another theme. I'd been writing a lot of themes at that time, and what happened was, of course, it landed right in the Showtime era. It landed right there with Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and those great rivalries between the Pistons and everybody else. It was good versus evil. All those great stories. Comebacks and Cinderella. I mean, all of those stories were being basically scored by that song, and so this you can tell by the way NBC is promoting it. This is a real nostalgia play for them. And I saw the same stuff you did. In fact, I lit the fire a little bit when I wanted to know what people were saying about the song. So I found some old footage of this song for people playing the song. I put it up on my social media, and people were telling me, some people like I was 8 years old when I would run to the TV set, and things like that. So it's that rare moment where the song becomes attached to a moment in time, and I am the fans are all about it. I had nothing to do with that part of it.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think not only Roundball Rock, and I just wanted this to ask this for a clarification, when in the 90s, when you have like Marv Albert or Bob
Mm.
Costas introing
Right.
the game and there's the music underneath it, did you compose that as well, just before the premiere of Roundball Rock would happen with the intro? So basically when the playoffs started, you hear like a soliloquy by either Costas or Albert setting up one of the playoff games. Did you compose that music as well?
They may have used a piece of my music, but I didn't compose it for that. And you're talking about at the beginning of the game, Bob Costas, who happens to be a great writer, as well as have a pretty recognizable voice, and then Marv Albert's voice, both of those guys contributed to the drama, and it was great because it was wonderfully overwrought, you know, and and then they would go to black, and then the peacock. I don't know what NBC is going to do. I mean, everybody's asking them to bring the peacock back again. Then the peacock would unfold.
Mhm.
That theme, the peacock theme, was something that I wrote later. So the my part of the song, the original song was, you know, bum ba 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 da ba ba da 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 da, which famously I wrote in my answering machine. But then the peacock opening up, they said, John, do you have something for this? So I went back into the studio, and that was a bum bum bum. Terrible. Da, 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 and the horns come in. Ba, 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 ba. And then and the NBC logo would unfurl, and that would come right after Costas, and then Marb would take over from there. So yeah, it was they did a great job with that, and now people just want that to come back. And interestingly enough, the Roundball Rock theme that you're going to hear in a little while here is it's the demo. It's the same demo that I did 35 years ago, which is you're like, well, what? Because I went when I heard that NBC wanted to bring it back, I quickly went to Nashville to legendary Ocean Way Studios with the orchestra there, and I did a new orchestral version of the theme, thinking I want to update it. And then when I started playing it, people were saying no, thank you, because they wanted the OG version. Now the OG version I think is a good demo, but when I sent it to NBC, it was fully formed. I mean, I had my band on it. I had a small orchestra on it, right? And so all of the orchestra hits and the 80s sounds, those are all coming back because it's the same. I mean, it's a more of an HD master, but it's the same mix.
I want to ask in terms of music for other sports that has evolved over the years. So you mentioned in terms of ABC wanted to create a new theme. I guess I want to get your opinion on kind of the themes that are happening currently all through sports. There's been a lot more sports that have been, you know, have arisen to the forefront of somewhat the sports public these days. What's your opinion on sports themes? Do you think that they have evolved? Do you think that they need some tweaking? Just kind of your overall opinion in terms of the themes you hear these days, on whether it's like the NFL, Major League Baseball, or even the NBA on TNT in the past. Do you have any kind of opinions in terms of how kind of the themes have evolved over time?
Yeah, I think, gosh, I think 98% of the themes that are running on television now are terrific. I love the Fox football theme, and my all time favorite theme is Monday Night Football. That's is I think a lot like Roundball. That really just tells you what's getting ready to happen. And oddly enough, the way the story goes, the Monday Night Football theme, which was originally called Heavy Action, it was on a production CD, so it wasn't commissioned. Some associate producer found it on a CD collection and tried it out, and it became that theme. But I think, the real key, if you look at the most successful themes, they get the work done in the 6 or 8 notes, right? And you need to be done there, and then you could do whatever you want. But if you start meandering around all over the place, and that's the danger of, and I've succumbed to that as well. That's the danger of being here in the studio, where now we have an unlimited number of tracks, and so you can. I did this even with my most recent sports record, where I'd have so much stuff going on, and I had to like strip it all out because the melody was gone. And so there's also a thing that I learned from John Williams, and later from Hans Zimmer, which is the importance of the handoff. And so we can nerd out here. The handoff is basically, and you'll hear it in Roundball Rock, where it starts out as a theme played by the brass section in the orchestra, supported by the rhythm section, and then the second section is handed off to all of the strings, into the cello and the violins and the violas, and then they hand off into the low brass. Right, there's the tubas and bass trombone and trombones, because with a theme, especially a theme like Roundball, and all of them really, you need to build it so that the producers can use it and they don't have to make a whole bunch of edits. So Roundball starts with the big theme, and then it comes back as a variation and the handoff to the strings, and then eventually it gets to just unison notes in the bottom end of the scale, which is bump bum 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 bum, and that's when Marv would say, here we go, whatever Marv would do, and then another revisit of the theme, bad, Marv's gonna kill me. Uh, and then at the end of the theme, da, 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 then you revisit just the chord changes of the song, so that another announcer can do the, brought to you by Geico, Macy's, and Budweiser, and all that stuff. So understanding what the producers need was something that I had only because I was in the truck so much, working on different sporting events. But the I could have given you a shorter answer. I like all the themes that are on the air right now, and but people will tell you, because we've heard it many times, that when Roundball comes on, it doesn't sound like football. It sounds like basketball.
Yeah, it totally does. It fits the moment. And with that theme, I'm just wondering over the years, what has been the reaction to with players? Have they gravitated towards the theme over years, and the current era of the NBA now? Have they made any comments in terms of the theme coming back?
I've seen some of that online. NBC has done a great job. Rick Cordella, who is the president of NBC Sports, and Greg Hughes is there in the publicity department, and the whole team, those guys, uh, Tommy Roy, they came up with this idea to have all of their stars hum the theme. I'm not sure if you've seen this commercial. It's on YouTube, and that was very cool for me to see, Michael Bublé singing the theme, to see the cast of America's Got Talent and Housewives and all of these folks, and even the Minions, singing the song. The Yeah, I mean, it's funny because a lot of the younger players know the song as well, which was surprising to me. I think part of it, I think the fact that it was playing in the Olympics, it got their attention as well. But one of the keys too, to Roundball is setting the right tempo. I at first had set the tempo at 120 beats a minute, and when I was in the studio mixing it, and I had some footage on a Betamax running in the recording studio, and I thought there's something wrong with this, and the editor said it's too slow, and he goes, look at and we would look at a fast break, and disco is 120 beats a minute, which like that, but but a fast break was 131, 132. That. So I took it up. I trashed the first take that we did. Took the metronome up to 131, which of course was harder for everybody to play, but that was the tempo. Yeah, and so when there's so many little things like that, a key change, a change in tempo, a different instrument playing the theme, that can make all the difference in whether it works or not.
No, that totally makes sense. And I think, again, with Roundball Rock, it just fits the game of basketball. And I think you have an acute skill of just identifying just little nuances of the game and putting that in the music. And I don't know, I really appreciate that because it just fits so perfectly. Before I let you go, I want to kind of get your reaction to your new album, Sports, just in terms of what has the reception been, and then what was your approach in terms of the creative process of the album as well.
Yeah, the creative process for me this time was very different. Usually I like to work, alone, and write, write tunes, here in the studio, do like a demo, and then go in with my band, and then just see what they have in mind for it, and then mix it up. This time it took me a year, and so this time I wrote a whole bunch of songs, and then I collaborated on quite a few of the songs with Tim Heinz, who's a tremendous writer. He used to play keyboards for Michael McDonald and for everybody. I mean, he works for Disney. And so he had a completely different take on stuff that I had written. So he would come in and say, well, what about this? And what about that? And I've always really held it too close. I'm very happy with the original stuff that I've written. But when we collaborated together, it really took it to another level. And then I took these demos and went to Nashville and had an orchestra work on them. And then some of that stuff I used, some of it I didn't. And then I brought it back into the studio here in Los Angeles and put a live band together with Ray Brinker on drums, Andrew Sinowick on guitar, Tim Landers, who I've known for years, on bass guitar, Tony Guerrero played trumpet and also Hammond organ, and I played piano and organ, and a guy named Mike Arvold, who was the engineer, who was just really had a great feel for what I was looking for. So a lot of that music that you hear on Sports is live. It's not a lot of like drum machines and things like that. And then I brought everything back into the studio. A guy named Gabe Moffett mixed it up and then gave me stems and brought it back into the studio. And Gabe is a genius, which is why it sounds like this. Gabe and Michael, and then I brought in all of my old '80s instruments, like the Moog synthesizer, and that's a Hammond behind me, and just tweak things up, and then I tested them out. I went in the backyard of my house here, and I get a slam ball or battle ropes or whatever, and I would see which sections worked and which didn't, and then I'd go back into the live recording session and maybe chop some stuff up. So it was it was I'm a big Steely Dan fan too, so I was okay with throwing stuff out and adding new stuff.
So, what surprised you in the creative process? Did anything come across that when you were, composing your music that you had a game plan, but then through the creative process surprised you in terms of how the music went in possibly another direction, or did you have like a blueprint in terms of how you want the album to sound?
Yeah, what surprised me was my wife, Connie Selica, was really one of the producers of this record. And I mean, she plays a little piano, but she was a great muse for this thing because the studio where I'm in right now, her office is right next door, and there's a walkway between us, and so she would walk by and she would just go nope like that, or she'd stop, open up the door, and come in and go, what is that? Or she'd come by and she'd yell football, you know, or there, she would hear this song Mile 18, which was not my favorite song because it was a real down tempo song, and she'd go, this is the hit on the record. It turns out that Mile 18 is the one that everybody is mentioning so much because it's so unusual. And now that we made a Grammy submission, there are other musicians that are contacting me and saying they like the song Kona, and Kona I almost didn't put on the record because it was at the last minute. It just didn't sound like it was fully formed, but it's really more of an homage to Vangelis's theme in Blade Runner, where he used a lot of the same synthesizers, and it's really sort of a dreamy piece where Mile 18 is a tribute to the Mile 18 marker in the marathon where the race really starts, and Kona is where they hold the Ironman, and so yeah, it all surprised me. It was a real it was an education in don't hold on too tightly because you never know what's going to work. It happens all the time.
John, this has been fantastic. Thank you very much for spending the time. Truly appreciate it. Can you let our audience know where they can check out the album if you're available on social media? You have anything upcoming projects you want our audience to be aware of as well?
I don't have any upcoming projects. I'm resting. I'm exhausted. Thank you for the great questions, and I apologize for those of you if you didn't want me to nerd out. I apologize. And for the nerds, God bless you. But no, Tesh.com is my website, and it's unlike the old days when it was. Well, this will be out on vinyl about around Christmas time, vinyl and CD. But it's out streaming right now, and then on October 21st we'll be live on the Today Show. October 21st is the first day that NBC is bringing back two matchups, right? And we'll be performing the song live on the Today Show. So look for that.
Wonderful. John, thank you very much. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.